is because it was literally probably about 19 years ago when I just graduated from college and I had the opportunity to work on the Wayne Brady Show. Back in the days, the Wayne Brady Show was a daytime talk show where it had lots of entertainment, had lots of interaction, and there was also a variety of celebrities that came to be a part of this daily talk show. And I remember that we were working the fall, and then we were working into the spring, and one gloomy day, as I guess you could say, we got news that the show was canceled. Literally 3 weeks before the year was even over, the word came down from the higher ups that the show was going to be canceled. It wasn't going to be renewed. And everyone just began to feel sad. Everyone began to feel upset. Everyone was frustrated. And everyone was like, well, why are they canceling the show? And I remember there were a lot of disappointed people. There were a lot of frustrated people, a lot of people that were mad within the office. And they had a right to be, right? Because now they had to figure out, where am I going to work at? Where am I going to get my next job? So there were all these issues that were going on. And I had in my mind that I wasn't gonna allow myself to be sad. I wasn't gonna allow myself to be frustrated, because I understood that the Wayne Brady Show was not my final destination. I understood that it was part of the process. And so the fact that it was being shut down, the fact that it was closing, let me know that I was just one step closer to ultimately what I was purposed and I was destined to do. And I learned in life, sometimes a door has to close before a new door can open itself up. I've also learned in life that sometimes certain people have to walk out of your life in order for the right people to walk into your life. I've also learned that certain people have to come out of your life so new people can come into your life in order to make your vision or your dream a reality. And because of my perspective and because of my mindset, I was walking around like, no, it's okay. Things are going to be all right. I still had joy. I still had a pep in my step. In the midst of what was going on, I made it in my mind that I was not going to let myself come to misery, because I had the right perspective, and I had the right lens, and I'm going to stay more of an optimistic mindset than allowing myself to be sad. And so that's what I began to do. I began to, I was excited. I had joy. I was walking around. It was like I was just cool. And then I had a boss. Boss was a little upset. My boss was like, "You're fired." Like, what? He said, "You're fired." I said, "Why am I fired?" He said, "You're just fired." I guess he fired me because I had a positive attitude. I guess he fired me because I had joy. I guess he fired me because I made up in my mind that I was not going to allow this situation to bring me down. And it's interesting in life that sometimes people will treat you in an unfair manner. Sometimes people will hate on you. Sometimes people will be against you because of your positive attitude. If you've ever been there, someone will say, "Oh yeah." So that's what I was going through. And so I was fired. So I was driving home that day and I was upset. I was mad. And I was like, you know what? I need to just go give him a piece of my mind. I'm a black man. I'm one of the few black people in this organization. Maybe it was a racial thing. And there's all these thoughts that are going through my mind as I'm driving from the 10 to the 110 freeway to the 405 to the 710. And I'm coming into Long Beach and I'm just upset. But when I got home, I sat still for a minute and I reflected on the situation. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to go off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email and I'm going to thank everyone for the opportunity and for what they have done. In essence, I made a decision that I am not going to try to get revenge. I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to give gratitude. I'm going to give appreciation. I'm going to honor them in the midst of an unjust situation. So I get in the house and on the computer and I send off the email. So the email goes off and I email everyone within the production team. And literally, within about 18 hours, I get an unexpected phone call. I said, "Hello?" Like, "Is this Joshua?" I said, "Yes, it is." They said, "Well, Joshua, this is the executive of production. This was my boss's boss." And he said, "I am so sorry that you got fired. Many of us in the office had no idea until you sent the email letting us know how appreciative you were. But we want you to know that what your boss did was not right, and we just apologize so much." So in essence, this boss fired me without talking to anyone in the company. Now, what if I would have went off? What if I would have got mad? Nope. Calm, cool, collective. "Thank you. I appreciate it." And I get this phone call, and we're having a conversation. And he says, "I have a question for you." I said, "Well, what's your question?" He said, "Do you want your job back?" And I was like, do I want my job back? First of all, y'all fired me. I mean, it's kind of cool being at home, I was like, no, I want my job back. Yo, I need to pay the bills. I was like, yes, I want my job back. He said, cool, you get your job back. And so the very next day, I went back and I was on this job and I was working in the office. And during this experience, I wrote my first book, Vision, the Answer to Generation X and Y. And I had the opportunity to be on the Wayne Brady Show promoting my book. I mean, it was absolutely amazing, right? And I think that's a message in itself, that sometimes the greatest challenges come before the greatest opportunities. As I'm sitting there and I'm working, what I didn't tell you is during that day off, I didn't just sit back and chill. I was looking for all other jobs because, a brother got to pay the bills. I don't want to be making top ramen taste like steak. And so what I began to do is I began to apply, and there was a job by Monster DLP. And so I applied for this job. It was to be a leadership coach, or not leadership coach, but more so of a facilitator. That one day, when the show ends, I get news that I got this new job. But not only did I get the new job, I got to travel all across the summer as a facilitator. I got to impact hundreds and thousands of students. And literally, this is one of those moments in my life that launched my speaking career. And now this is what's crazy. The day I get fired, the day I'm upset, the day I'm mad, the day I'm ready to give them a piece of my mind, if I didn't respond the right way, I miss out on getting my job back, and I miss out on a destiny moment. Share something with you. You know what I found? I have found that sometimes our destinies are connected to the way we respond to a situation. I'm sure you know people, right? You know leaders, you know students, you know other people. They responded the wrong way. They got an attitude, they got mad, they cursed someone out, they walked out the door, and because of that response, they missed an incredible moment of destiny. Thankfully, at that moment, I responded the right way, and because of my response, it actually worked in my favor, and it helped me get closer to what I'm destined to do as a speaker. Now, the interesting thing about this entire story is it actually reminded me of a concept that a guy by the name of Daniel Goleman did a lot of research on, called emotional intelligence. Now, when we deal with emotional intelligence is an ability not only to recognize what I call your emotional triggers, but to regulate so you don't respond the wrong way, and its ability to recognize the emotions of others and respond in a way that ultimately results in a positive outcome. So when we deal with this concept of emotional intelligence, is being able to negate or to eradicate those triggers that cause us to respond in a negative manner. Because a lot of times people miss out on opportunities. People become ineffective as leaders because they have not learned how to lead, how to live in what I call emotional intelligence. And when I look back on my story, it was clear to me that the reason why I was able to see success in a bad situation was because, without even knowing, I was living in what I call emotional intelligence. Now, what's so intriguing about this concept of emotional intelligence is there's a lot of researchers that have came together, and what researchers have discovered is they have discovered that your EQ actually has a greater impact on your leadership and career success than your IQ. Now, again, we already talked about what emotional intelligence is, but we deal with IQ. This is your intelligence. This is how you deal with information, how you deal with reason, how you deal with logic. And many of you are familiar with the IQ. But according to studies, they found that IQ is absolutely important, but they also found that EQ is actually more important if you desire to position yourself for career or leadership success. It's actually one of the reasons why this is so important, because what they have found is that emotional intelligence deals a lot with what they call soft skills. There's a lot with people skills, relationships, dealing with conflict, motivating people, inspiring people. Like, you can be very good at something and you can have a lot of knowledge, But if you don't know how to connect with people, if you don't know how to inspire people, if you don't know how to motivate people, if you don't have empathy, it affects your leadership effectiveness. So one of the reasons why they say that EQ is more effective than IQ when it comes to leadership effectiveness is primarily, or a lot has to do with the soft skills that require more of your emotional intelligence versus your IQ, your intelligence. Now, again, both are important, but as far as leadership is concerned, as I often tell people, a lot of leadership, even a lot of career success, comes down to relationships. And there's a powerful quote that I love to share with people from Daniel Goleman. Again, he has a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. But I want you to hear what he says. He says, if your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, we all understand what that is. He said, if you can't have empathy or effective relationships, here it comes, then no matter how smart you are, you're not going to get very far. And that's what he's going to say. You can be smart, you can be brilliant, you can be very intelligent, you can get a 4.0 GPA, you can be all that and more. But if you don't know how to deal with your emotions, if you don't know how to have effective relationships, if you don't know how to identify your triggers and regulate those triggers, he says you're not going to get very far within your career, and you're not going to be very effective as a leader. There's another study that came out of Harvard University, and I think this study is so powerful because what they found out is this. They found out that people that move up in companies 90% of the time are able to do so because they have emotional intelligence. So 90% of the time when people get promotions and they begin to matriculate in companies and they begin to get leadership positions, it's because they have high emotional intelligence. I didn't share this with you, but there's another study that I think is pretty profound for those that like to make money. There was actually a study in Daniel Goleman's book, and it said this, that people that have high emotional intelligence will make $29,000 more per year than those who don't. So it also can affect your money. So it's really important that we understand the power and the importance of this concept. And it's one of the reasons I believe that really every student leader, every college student needs to have a class in emotional intelligence because it affects so many different areas of our lives. And based on this truth and based on this reality, my goal today is really simple. Today, I'm going to give you 4 questions, if I have the time. I'll say it again. I'm going to give you 4 questions that I believe all of us must consider if we're going to develop our EQ. If we're going to become what I call more emotionally intelligent leaders, I'm going to give you 4 questions from the Daniel Goleman model that I believe are essential if you're going to increase and see the positive results of this concept called emotional intelligence. So, the leaders, the reason why I showed you these pictures is because it leads me to my first point. My first point is this. If you're going to develop your emotional intelligence, if you're going to become more emotionally intelligent as a leader, the first question you're going to ask yourself is this. What are your emotional triggers? In essence, what are the words, behaviors, experiences, people, or situations that affect your decision-making, your behavior, or your responses to a particular situation? And that's the first question we're going to ask yourself is, what are your emotional triggers? What are those underlying issues, those words, those behaviors, those experiences, those memories that cause you to respond in a way that is not necessarily who you are? In essence, what I want to know is what words, what behaviors, what situations, what people, what pictures, what experiences cause you to feel angry, cause you to feel upset, cause you to feel worried, cause you to feel stressed out. First question we got to ask ourselves is, what are these emotional triggers? And the reason why this is so important is because, number one, when we identify our emotional triggers, it's part of the process towards helping us not act or not speak in a way that's not only destructive, but is not actually who we truly are as a person. But more importantly, what I've discovered is this, is that it protects us from insecurity, from weary, from being angry, from being mad, disengaged, frustrated, unmotivated, uncaring, lonely, isolated. When I identify these triggers and I deal with them, it protects me from these negative outcomes. It helps me lead better. It helps me build positive relationships. It helps me connect with people. It helps me create long-lasting relationships. See, a lot of these negative responses, a lot of these negative experiences are all tied back to some emotional trigger. So one of the reasons why I love this quote, it says, and I quote, it says, an important key in anger management is identifying the trigger and understanding what it means. So a lot of times when we get mad, when we get upset, there's an underlying trigger that calls us to respond. And if we don't want to respond that way, and if we don't want to jeopardize our career that way, and if we don't want to say the wrong thing at the wrong time, then we got to identify what is that trigger. Another statement that I think is pretty powerful is it talks about how your emotional state affects your self-esteem. So a lot of times when people don't feel confident, when people don't feel like they're good enough, it all goes back to an underlying issue. There's always something there that causes you to feel like that. Maybe it's what someone said. Maybe it was a failure. Maybe it was a rejection. Maybe it was an experience. Maybe there was something there that you never dealt with that caused you to believe that you don't deserve to be a leader. That caused you to believe that you don't deserve to be successful. That caused you to believe that you don't deserve to be the best in your class as a student. That caused you not to believe that you don't deserve to have a seat at the table. There's these triggers. There's these experiences. There's these fears. There's these failures that affect us from being confident, from believing in ourselves, from walking in the room, knowing who we are, knowing we're special, knowing we're amazing, and knowing that we're incredible. In essence, the reason why this concept is so important is because when I identify the trigger, it affects so many other things. There was actually a study done by Korn Ferry Institute, and they did a study of high-performing teams and low-performing teams. And one of the things that they discovered the most high energy, performing and productive teams were with people that had high self-awareness. And the lowest performing teams were those who were unaware or didn't have high awareness of who they were. In essence, they weren't aware of their triggers. They weren't aware of these underlying issues. They weren't aware of who they were. And so therefore it affected their effectiveness as leaders. And so if we're going to develop emotional intelligence, if we're going to become emotionally intelligent leaders, if we're going to be great leaders, if we're going to have personal career success, if we're going to have healthy relationships in general, we're going to be aware of our emotional triggers. I'll never forget, I don't know if you've ever been there, but I several years ago, I had a really bad breakup. And the reason it was bad was because I was in love with this woman. Like I was in love. There was a commitment. I thought I was going to be with this person for the rest of my entire life. I was locked in. And I'll never forget it. Just went bad. It just went bad. It went from cloud nine to all the way down to the worst of the worst of the worst. And I remember I was just frustrated, and I was just mad, and I was just agitated. And it was so bad that even when I looked at this person, I got mad. It was so bad that even when this person talked, I just got agitated. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but some of you just look at and they just say stuff. It just irritates you. And neither of you like each other. And then it would go a step farther because they know I don't like them, and I know they don't like me, and they know what irritates me. They start saying stuff and doing stuff to get me even more agitated. And so one day I'm interacting with this person, and I see them and I leave, and again I'm frustrated. I'm like, I can't stand this person. This person's getting on my last nerves. And I remember I'm just so upset. I get in the car, and you know what we do? We get mad. I pick up the phone and call one of my best friends. Yo! And I'm just talking about this. The person gets on my last nerves. I can't stand them. Every time I see them, and I got to deal with them because we have a child together. I can't just cut them off. I can't just delete them from Facebook. I can't just delete them from Instagram because I got a child. I got to be with this person for the rest of my life. I'm just so mad. In the middle of my conversation, my good friend says, "Hey, Josh." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Have you read the book Emotional Intelligence?" I said, "What?" He said, have you read the book Emotional? I said, no, I've never read that book. He said, I think you need to read the book because I think it's going to help you with the situation. I was like, okay. But you know, when you're in a bad situation, you're trying to find answers. And so I went and I read the book. And so I'm reading this book and I'm learning about how emotional triggers. I'm learning about regulation. And I'm realizing that the reason I'm responding this way is because there is some emotional hurt that I haven't dealt with. There's some emotional pain that I haven't dealt with. And until I deal with that, I'm going to consistently be feeling a certain type of way. So I get this book and I read the book and see the person the next day. And when I see them, tell myself, emotional intelligence. I'm upset, y'all. I'm like, they're just irritated. Emotional intelligence. I walk to the car, emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence. I see them again, emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence. I'm walking, emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just telling myself, emotional intelligence. And literally after about two and a half months go by, I'm driving on the 710 freeway one night because I've got stronger. I became emotionally healed. I just got inspired, and so I called my ex. I said, you know what? I forgive you. I'm not mad no more. I'm not upset no more. As a matter of fact, I want the best for you. I hope you do incredible. I hope you find someone that's the best relationship partner you've ever had in your life. I mean, I'm just like saying, like literally all the it just left me because I became consistent in my emotional intelligence. And literally because of this process of not expecting the person to change, but I changed myself, the entire situation got better. We have a peaceful relationship. Now we have a working relationship with my daughter. Now, does she get on my nerves sometimes? Absolutely. I'm sure I get on her nerves too. But we have peace. We have love for each other. There's no hate. There's no animosity. There's no cussing each other out. My wife now will tell you I'm very patient. Ultimately, we've been able to work the entire situation out. But you say, Dr. J, why? Because I got a hold to a book that taught me how to increase my emotional intelligence. And I identified the trigger. I identified the pain. I identified the frustration. And I said, I'm going to step up. I'm going to address the situation. And because I was healed and because I overcame, hey, y'all, I'm feeling much better today than I've ever felt before. But it's because I was able to identify my emotional triggers. So you're here today, and I love talking about emotional intelligence because we always have emotional challenges. Some have relationships, some have people issues, some have unforgiveness, some have parents. Listen, we all got some triggers here right now, and that's okay. This is a safe spot. I'm here to help you to overcome, and I understand that just one conversation may not help. It may take you a year, it may take you a few months, it may take 5 years. But again, I want to just help you to give you some antidotes that have worked for me, or like to say, give you some gems. And so how do I recognize my emotional triggers? Well, there's 3 ways that you can do this to build your EQ. Number 1, identify 3 to 5 emotional triggers that you have. What are 3 to 5 triggers that you know you have? Number 2, determine why do they exist? What does this feel like? Why is it here? Here comes the tough part, y'all. I got to commit myself to overcoming them. It's easy to know. It's easy to determine. But the challenge is, I got to commit that I'm going to overcome. Listen, it took me 2.5 months. You think that it wasn't easy to see someone that gets on my last nerves? You think it wasn't easy to see someone that fuss? Boy, this was work out here. Come on, somebody. Work. That was what it was for me. But I was committed that I was not going to allow this person to have power. See, when you allow others to make you feel a certain type of way, you're giving them power over you. And see, one of the ways that you release the power of manipulation and the power of control is making up in your mind, I'm not going to allow you to cause me to feel a certain type of way. And I'm just going to be 100. And again, I'm not trying to be political, but again, with our former president, all the stuff that was going on, I didn't let that stuff irritate me. I didn't even pay it no mind. You got to learn. I ain't going to listen to it right now. I ain't got time for it. I'm not going to let it agitate me. Are y'all still with me? Y'all nodding your eyes. I hope you're still with me. In essence, we got to identify our emotional triggers. I'm going to get into my next point. My next point I think is so incredibly important because once we identify the trigger, The next step in building what I call our emotional intelligence as a leader is we got to have a plan on how we plan to regulate the emotional triggers. In essence, we got to understand, okay, when someone triggers me, how am I going to decrease the intensity, the timing, and the response to that particular situation that caused me to feel a certain type of way? In essence, when we do this concept of regulating your emotional triggers, what we are doing is we're developing strategies that, number one, help us decrease the intensity. You know, sometimes my blood pressure is going up. So how are we going to make sure our blood pressure doesn't go up? Number two, decrease the timing. Yes, we're going to address it. Yes, there's a time to address it. But again, as you understand, there's a time and place for everything. And sometimes at that moment, that's not the right time. So we want to decrease so we're doing it in the right timing. And then lastly, we want to decrease our negative responses. You know, sometimes you get so mad and you're just talking, you're just saying stuff. I didn't say that. No, you didn't say that. You were just really, really mad. And you know, so you just pop off the mouth, just coming out your mouth. Where'd that come from? I was just mad. I didn't mean to say it. And we understand that because there's certain things that make us feel a certain type of way. But again, when we are able to regulate those triggers, we begin to respond in a better manner. So the reason why I think this is so important that we're able to identify not only our triggers, but our regulation strategies is because not only does this help us not say and do things that are not necessarily right for the particular moment, but more importantly, we can identify the trigger, but if we don't have the regulation strategy, it's still going to exist. In essence, when I develop a regulation strategy, when I discover how to identify and regulate my emotional triggers, I'm able to stay calm under pressure. I'm able to be patient, y'all, with negative people. I'm able to say the right thing in a really tough moment. I'm able to stay focused when a lot of things are distracting me. I'm able to be strong when people offend me. I'm able to deal with conflict better. And I'm able to engage in courageous conversations where people are going to say things, where people are going to show me things that I really disagree with. But my EQ, my ability to identify and regulate will allow me to get past all of that and really connect and really develop how can we work this situation out. Again, this is why EQ is so important. Because when you go into a workplace, you have different opinions, you have different thoughts, you have different beliefs. And if we don't know how to identify triggers and regulate triggers, sometimes we can't even solve a problem that both parties actually want to solve. So one of the reasons I love this quote, I think this quote is so powerful as it relates to leadership. It says, the biggest challenge to self-control is emotional regulation. Let me say it again. The biggest challenge to self-control as a leader is emotional regulation. Watch now, successful people know how to manage their emotions, let their emotions be their servants rather than their masters. In essence, they don't let their emotions control them. They control their emotions. They know when they got to get loud. They know when they got to be stern. They know when they got to let you know who they are, but they know how to use it in an effective manner. I'm not saying sometimes you don't got to give people a piece of your mind. I'm not saying sometimes you got to rise up and just let people know you're not going to do that. Absolutely, there's moments where we have to all do that. But we have to do it in the right moments, the right setting, and when it's most effective. And that's what emotionally intelligent leaders can do. And some of the ways that people regulate some of these emotional triggers is they avoid the situation. Sometimes I just got to avoid the situation. I got to talk to a trusted friend. I got to just get it out. I just got to talk. Just hear what I'm saying. Got to switch my focus. I'm not going to pay attention to you today. I ain't got time for that. Someone know what I'm talking about. Hello. Somebody got to speak to your eternal voice. You know that eternal voice that is telling you to give them a piece of your mind. No, calm down. Shut up. Hello. Sometimes you got to work out. I got to work it out. I got to get the work out and I got to work it out. Sometimes you have to meditate. Sometimes you got to pray. Yes, pray. And pray again. And sometimes just to end the conversation. I don't have time to talk to you right now. I'm not even going to talk to you right now. Like I don't have time for the drama. I don't have time for the misery. I really don't have time for my blood pressure to go up. I just got to go bye-bye. And if you're not going to handle it, I'm just going to handle it. I just have to avoid it. These are some regulation strategies that you can use to suppress the emotional triggers. But one that I love to share with people, it's called the Siberian North Railroad technique. And it's a 5-step process. And this is basically what it consists of. It consists of stopping, breathing, noticing, reflecting, and responding. So I'm in an emotional situation and the blood pressure is high and I'm really excited and I'm really upset. Stop. Take a deep breath. Notice the situation, reflect, and now respond. I'm telling you, game changer. If you watch me right now, we're in that emotional situation, stop. Notice, reflect, breathe, and then you respond. It makes a huge difference. And I think this is so important for us to incorporate into our leadership, incorporate into our relationships, is not only do we want to be aware of the emotional triggers, but we also want to learn how to regulate them as well. And you got to find what works for you. Everybody is different. Everybody has different strategies. Everyone has different ways of dealing with things. You got to figure out what works best for you. And a great story I love to share with everyone is there's a particular clip, and I've shared this in a variety of presentations, and it was taken from The Talk. I'm not sure of how many of you are fans of The Talk, but there's a particular clip where literally we're going to see the power of EQ in operation. And so without giving you any more information as it relates to this video, I'm going to play the video so that you can see exactly what happens. And then I'm going to show you how this concept worked for Cheryl Underwood in the particular conflicting situation. Here we go.
Okay, here's my secret. In the 90s, they had this tour called the Kings of Comedy. And if for all of you who know, the Kings of Comedy was Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hughley, and Bernie Mac. Well, they decided that they needed to have the Queens of Comedy, which was Monique, Samora, Adele Givens, and Laura Hayes. I had been offered a position in the Queens of Comedy, and I turned it down. Because I wanted to know the details of the deal. And you know, as comics, Aisha,
yes,
you know, you want to know the details of the deal. Are you being put in a position where you're not getting paid enough? So I was
a lot of times they're funny with their money.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, go on, and that's right. So I was like, go on, do your thing. Fabulous. So the Queens of Comedy end up making a tape, concert tape, concert film. So they became very, very successful. And for those of us in the comedy game, especially in urban comedy, you were being questioned. Why weren't you a part of? Did you get those
time,
two?
yeah.
Why weren't you a part of the Queens of Comedy? So I got an opportunity. The producer, Walter Latham, called me and said, there might be an opportunity for you to work with these ladies because, you know, Monique had gone on to get the Parkers. She goes on to win Academy Awards and have a great career. So there was an opening. And they were going to tape another comedy concert. So I'm thinking, here's my second chance. It's a great opportunity. I respect these women. And there's a conference call. So in my enthusiasm, and I want to be punctual, I dial into this conference call that I think has not started yet, thinking that I'm going to be...
Oh, this is so juicy.
Yes. I think I'm going to be on time with this call. And I think they're going to put me in queue, because usually if you do a conference call, they put you in queue, and they say, we'll wait until the host arrives. So I dial into this call, and what I hear is, and Monique is not on this call, I hear Samora, Adele Givens, and Laura Hayes talking about me.
Oh my God.
Oh, this call.
I can't take it. What's gonna happen?
I hear discussions about my appearance. I hear discussions about my ability. Why is she going to be a part? What do we need her for? And this is my recollection of this call. And I was startled and hurt. But I have to say this. I was so shocked and hurt that I could not unmute my phone and go, hey, bitch, I hear you.
hear what they were saying, or did you feel like you wanted to?
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
So I stayed on all of the call with my phone on mute, but I thought, take notes.
Yeah.
Listen, because rarely would we hear someone talking about us and saying what they truly feel about us. So I'm like, okay, right on, okay. And I'm thinking, I ain't did that, but you know, and then after I listened to all this, and I want every woman to hear this, I was bruised, but I wasn't broken.
Yeah.
I wasn't broken. So, I listened to the entire call. I waited for everybody to click off, and I called Walter Latham, and I said, I don't think this is going to be a great fit for me, but I hope that these women will go on and do great things. To this day, they did not know that I was on this call. They did not know. And it gets better. I have worked with Laura Hayes on Beauty Shop after this call. I worked with Adele Givens on Hilarious after this call. I just saw some more at the Neighborhood Awards in Atlanta after this call because I decided, instead of being angry and vengeful, I decided to take the truth of what they're saying and their right to have an opinion and make myself an even better person. And I know you're probably thinking, well, why are you saying it now? Because I'm right where I belong.
So y'all saw it. Y'all saw what happened. I mean, that is such an inspiring and an absolutely powerful video. And I've been sharing it for, I think, maybe 10 years now, but I always share it because it's so powerful. But it relates to this concept so much, right? She's on the phone and people are talking about her. I mean, they're talking bad about her, calling her out of her name. I'm sure many of us are like, yo, you know, like gave people a piece of her mind. But for whatever reason, it didn't work. And once she had a time to catch herself, she said, oh, no, I'm just going to listen. And I'm going to use this to learn and take notes on what I need to improve. In essence, I'm going to use the haters' information to make myself better. Then I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to go about my business, do what I do. And life has a way of putting me exactly where I'm supposed to be. Again, I can't reiterate this enough. The right response at the right time can either sabotage your destiny or propel you to your destiny. And in this situation, I believe she responded the right way. Now she's not only has her own talk show, she's not only thriving, she's not only succeeding, but she's also inspiring people like us with her powerful story. And this is just one of the many examples of what can transpire when we identify our triggers and we regulate those triggers and respond the right way. So now the question is how do I build this part of EQ? Number one, I gotta identify what are 3 to 5 regulation strategies that I'm gonna use. What are 3 to 5 regulation strategies that I am going to use? Number two, I gotta determine how I plan to use them. How am I gonna incorporate this into my leadership, into my experiences as a student? And then number three, I gotta commit to them. Gotta commit, because it's gonna be hard sometimes. You're not gonna wanna be patient sometimes. You're not gonna wanna keep your mouth shut sometimes. You're gonna get really agitated. But I gotta commit myself. And this is what I know. I know with all of my heart, if you can perfect this skill set, these first 2 steps, it will not only have an impact on your personal life, your relationship life, but as I said today, what we're here for, to have an impact on your career, as well as your leadership success as well. Second concept is, do you have a plan to regulate your emotional triggers? Man, and then this right here is like, this is golden for me, and I got 20 minutes, and I hope I get to number 4, but if I don't, I'm glad I got here. So here is the third point. If you're going to increase your emotional intelligence, if you're going to experience the positive results in your career and as a leader, when it comes to your EQ, the third question you got to ask yourself is, are you socially aware? I'm going to say it again. Are you socially aware? What does that mean? Ultimately, that means number one is you're empathetic. You have an ability to put yourself in other people's shoes. Number two, you're aware of others' emotions. You're aware of what they're going through. Number three, you're able to read a room. So you can come into a room, you can come into a group, and you can read the emotional climate of that group. Number four, you're able to read the organizational culture. So now we're not just dealing with people. Now we're not just dealing with the room. Now we're dealing with the whole culture. We're dealing with the whole structure. You can read the emotional climate of the culture or the system. And then lastly, most importantly, you know how to respond to certain people, to certain groups, and to certain challenges within the organization. When I am socially aware, not only am I effective at responding to the different emotional states of people, but I'm also effective at responding to different groups, and I'm also effective at responding to the organizational culture as well. This is all a part of what I like to say is social awareness. And I think this is so vitally important when it comes to leadership. And because number one, you're dealing with multiple people. You're dealing with multiple emotional states. And so not only you got to be able to read people, not only got to understand their emotional state, but you got to know how to say the right thing at the right moment that ultimately may inspire, may console, may impact, or may help people to do what you desire them to do as a leader. But even more importantly, from an organizational standpoint, sometimes maybe there was a major challenge, maybe there was a major issue. And so when you come into a room and you know what people are feeling, you know what to say and what not to say to produce a positive response. And then when we deal with an organizational culture, we're dealing with the organization and the structure, you understand what's going on and you know what to say, and you also know what not to say. Go a step farther just to help you test yourself right now. When I show you this picture, a socially aware person would know exactly what to say in order to deal with this emotional state. When I show you this picture, a socially aware person would know exactly how to respond to this specific situation. When I show you this picture, a socially aware leader would know exactly how to communicate and how to respond to this situation. And that says no matter what the situation is, no matter what the circumstance is, a socially aware person is not only empathetic, but they know how to read people, they know how to read rooms, they know how to read systems, and most importantly, they know how to respond the right way that leads to a positive result. And it's one of the reasons I tell people all the time, as a leader, do not be a thermometer, be a thermostat. I'll repeat again. Don't be a thermometer, be a thermostat. What do you mean? A thermometer, it adapts to the organization. A thermostat sets the temperature. So if everyone is feeling down, I'm going to set it at another level. If someone needs to be inspired, I'm going to set it at another level. I'm not going to allow myself to get dragged into negativity, to get dragged into misery, and to get dragged into things that not only are going to affect me emotionally, but are going to affect other people emotionally as well. There's another study that I think was really interesting, and it was a study, it was a quote by Travis Bradbury, and he works at EQ as well. And one of the things he said, when leaders lack self-awareness or they lack social awareness, he talks about how it impacts the organization, how it impacts people, how it impacts the leader. In essence, the less socially aware I am, the less impact I will have as a leader, the less impact I'll have as a member of a team, and ultimately, the less likely that I will be promoted and I'll attain career success, which is why I got to consistently be developing and working on my social awareness, because it does take time. There was a study at the Center for Creative Leadership. And not only did they say that 75% of careers are derailed because of a lack of emotional competencies, i.e. social awareness, but there was another study that revealed that outstanding leaders, when they walk in a room, they're consistently reading the climate, reading the setting, interacting with people, understanding what is going on in order to be effective, not only at speaking to the situation, but to the emotional state as well. And there's so many stories that I could share with you, and there's so many different experiences, but one that stands out to me is this is a picture of some of my best friends in the world. We were actually in Dallas, Texas, celebrating one of my best friends' 40th birthday before COVID-19 hit. And the wonderful thing about my friends is we share a lot of stories. We have a lot of transformational moments, and we have a lot of deep conversations. And I'll never forget we were having a conversation amongst each other. And one of my friends began to talk about how when they began working for a company, and they said they were a black man working for a company. When they began to work for a company, they began to identify certain language that deemed racist, that had bias, even prejudice. And they talked about how they were really upset. They were angry. It just made them feel a certain type of way. And although they wanted to respond, because of their social awareness of the organization, they said, this is not the moment to address it yet. So as people were still using derogatory language and saying things and doing things that wasn't right, my good friend just kept their mouth shut for a moment. And probably because he kept his mouth shut, they began to matriculate through the company, promotion after promotion after promotion after promotion, till they got to a moment where he was literally the first African-American vice president ever of this organization. And when he became the first vice president ever of this organization, he said, now I'm in a position where I can make change. And it was at this point that he began to address some of these comments. It was at this point he began to address some of these biases. It was at this point that he began to increase the recruitment and the retention of people of color within the organization. In essence, he had an issue from the beginning, watch now, but because of his social awareness of the organization, he knew that that wasn't the right moment to address it. He knew he had to wait for the right time and the right moment to address it, because watch this, hear what I'm about to say. Sometimes when you address things at the wrong time, there will be no impact, but when you address it at the right time, there will be major impact. I think we saw that with a lot of corporations and the whole George Floyd. I mean, what happened with George Floyd, that's been happening for years. I mean, that was happening when I was in school. But when that moment happened and people said, I'm having enough of enough, you begin to see the impact in culture, the impact in companies, the impact in schools, because it was the right moment in the right time for the message to be heard. I'm not saying anything else beforehand was wrong, because we definitely need to advocate. We definitely need to speak up. But that was a symbolic moment that had a huge impact that I hope continues to have an impact and continues to have momentum. But the lesson that I learned from my friend is this, that if I'm going to be emotionally intelligent, not only got to check myself, but I got to be socially aware of not only people, not only the room, and not only the organizational structure, but I got to know when to communicate, when to act, and how to do it in such a way that leads to a positive result. This is so critically important. And a lot of people are not able to advance. A lot of people are not able to see results. A lot of people are not able to be as effective as they have the potential to be as leaders, because they lack this concept, which I like to define as social awareness. Now the question comes, Dr. J, how do we build social awareness? Man, there's so much, but let me just give you a couple of gems. Number one, you got to be empathetic. I got to put myself in someone else's shoes. Number two, I got to observe and listen before I act. Observe. When you start a job, when you're new, before you start saying, just observe, just talk, just listen. Find mentors so they can give you an insight of the structure of the people so you know how to respond the right way. Number three, be a student of human behavior. I can't learn how to respond to different situations if I don't understand people, because people react differently. I got to understand human behavior. I got to understand what are certain things that I can do in order to produce positive results. Number five, be a problem solver. Got to be a problem solver. I can't just study human behavior and not be able to help to deal with the situation. Got to be a problem solver. And this is last, learn from experienced people. Learn from mentors, learn from seasoned people. On your campus, talk to people that have been there for 20 and 30 plus years. Talk to people that have experience. Talk to people that have been at the company. Talk to them and get to know them. And just not just for them to help you out, not just for them to give you an opportunity, just have a seat at the table and just learn. You know, I tell people this all the time. It's not just about meeting the most powerful person in the world. It's just being in the room with the most powerful person in the world so I can catch things that I'm only able to catch because I'm in the presence of a great person. I want to say that again. There's certain levels of greatness that you will only catch by being in their presence. Sometimes they don't even know what they're doing that is of greatness, but you just catch it. You just catch it. You just catch it. So just be around great people. Just be around experienced people. Just let them know I'm not here to get nothing out of you. I'm here to add value, but just be around them and you'll be amazed at the impact, at the lessons that you can learn that will help you become more socially aware. The third thing is, are you socially aware? You're going to be effective as an emotionally intelligent leader. If you're going to have high EQ, if you're going to see the positive result of emotionally intelligent leadership, the last question I want to share with you today is this. Can you manage relationships? Oh my God. Can you manage relationships? What do you mean by that, Dr. J? What I mean by that is really simple. Can you, number one, network, meet, connect, develop, build, and manage a long-lasting positive relationships? Again, there's steps to this thing. Number one, I network, I meet, I connect, then I develop, I build, and then I manage the relationship through positive communication and behavior that is ultimately long-term. The last key component of being an emotionally intelligent leader is you know how to manage relationships. Now, again, why is this important? The first reason why it's so important because number one, I believe leadership is all about relationships. I mean, you're a leader of people. You're there to serve people. You're there to motivate people. You're there to inspire people. You're there to get people's trust. You're there for the people. A leader's not there for people to serve the leader. A leader's there for him or her to serve them. And ultimately, that comes down to relationships. So if you're not good with relationships, it's going to be very difficult to be an effective leader and ultimately to attain what I call career leadership success. Number two, the other reason why it's so important is because when I'm effective with relationships, I become more effective at inspiring. I become more effective at loving on people. I become more effective at serving people. I become more effective at motivating people, at empowering people, at inspiring people, and ultimately working as a collective team in order to produce positive results as a leader. In essence, my ability to connect, to build, and manage relationships through positive communication and effective behaviors makes all the difference. Which means if I'm going to be effective at managing relationships, there's a couple things I want to share with you today. Number one, I got to provide value. I can't be an effective partner within any relationship if I'm not bringing value. Number two, I got to authentically care. People that are effective in relationships, they authentically care. Number three, you got to be open-minded to suggestions, to ideas, but also I got to be positive. Number four, I got to have integrity and trustworthiness. Who wants to be in a relationship with someone that lies? Who wants to be in a relationship with someone that cannot be dependable? Who wants to be in a relationship with someone that doesn't say what they say they're going to do? Number four, I got to deal with conflict effectively. This is one of the keys to managing relationships, being able to navigate and get through disagreements and get through conflicts and get to the point where we can agree to actually disagree. I got to understand others. I can't manage. I can't appreciate. I can't do the things that I need to do at the optimum level unless I understand. I got to be an effective communicator. I would encourage you all again. There's a wonderful book called The 5 Love Languages, but I got to be an effective communicator and I got to appreciate and love people. Again, as I shared with you all earlier, I said there's a quote by Mother Teresa, and I always said there's more hunger in the world for love and appreciation than there is for bread. There's more hunger for love and appreciation than there is for bread. So if I'm going to manage a relationship, I got to be someone that appreciates and that loves people. And The reason why this is so important, the reason why it's one of the reasons I love this quote, and I want you to hear it real quick. Watch what it says. It says, people do business with people not because they have to, but because they want to. Let that sink in. People do business. People join organizations. People follow leaders. People give you jobs. People give you promotions, not because they have to, but because they want to. And why do they want to? Because they like you, because you have a positive relationship. You know, I was doing a particular program on jobs and finding jobs and attaining career success in the midst of COVID. I came across this study on LinkedIn. And in this study, one of the things that they found out is there was a good percentage of people, literally about 70+%, I believe it was, that literally were connected to someone that enabled them to get the job. And that's just one of the things they found out is they found out people that get jobs or careers or get promotions, it's not necessarily that they just went through the job board or the LinkedIn boards. It always comes back, somebody knows you. There's a relationship at some point. It's one of the reasons I love the quote. It says, your network is your net worth. And my good friend Tish Norman always liked to say, it's not who you know, here it comes, it's who knows you. That determines whether or not you're going to thrive or you're going to succeed within your career or as a leader. But again, it goes all back to relationships. All goes back to relationships. So we got to be able to manage our relationships if we're going to be emotionally intelligent leaders. And I'm going to share a story with you. So as you know, and as Liz has shared as well, we're getting ready to do our first generation career conference. Literally, this is coming up April 9th through the 10th. It's the Circle to Change virtual leadership experience first generation conference for first gen students. This is a career conference for first gen students. Yes, round of applause. We're getting ready to do this in our 12th year, but watch this. The reason we've got to our 12th year, the reason we have a leadership team, the reason we have support, the reason we have incredible speakers and incredible panelists is because of relationships. This entire program, this entire experience has been built on solid relationships. There's so many stories that I could share, but one that stands out to me is I'll never forget several years ago, about the third year of the conference, I was at the NAACP convention in Los Angeles, California, and I was going to a president's networking section because I knew if it's the president of the organization, there's going to be a lot of connections, there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and I wanted to meet some people because I was looking for sponsorship, I was looking for speakers, and I was looking for connections. And I remember I'm standing in line, and in front of me, there's this guy by the name of Noel Massey. And Noel Massey's just talking. He starts talking about how he likes speaking to students and how he's passionate about students. And I'm hearing this, and I'm hearing this. I hear it because one of my internships always said, always have your antennas up because you never know who's around you. And so my antennas are up. And he said, I love students. And so me, I don't know who you are, but I said, oh, nice to meet you. My name is Dr. Joshua. My name is Joshua Fredenburg. And I just absolutely, I speak to students as well. We start talking really quickly. He gives me his card. He says, I want you to research me and then give me a call. Can y'all believe that? He gives me his card. He said, I want you to research me and give me a call. So you know what I did? When I got home that night, Google.com, and I researched him. Come to find out, he was one of the regional presidents for UPS. I was like, wow, the regional president. So immediately, I like the music. They had like the assistant. We got it all set up. So I went down to LA. He was right by LA Live. I go into the office and I'm with the assistant. I go to the back and we just start talking and I'm just talking about my experiences. And I start talking about Circle of Change. I say, yeah, we do this Circle of Change leadership experience and we're doing students. And I had a website up. He said, well, let me see. And so he gets on and says, oh, this is impressive. And he said, oh, this is good. Let me review this a little bit more. And I said, well, Mr. Massey, I was like, you're such a great speaker. You're such a great influencer. I would love for you to come speak at the Circle of Change. I was like, I didn't even waste no time. I was like, I would love for you to speak. I mean, we don't have no budget, but I would love. And he was like, let me get back to you. And literally weeks later, he says, I want to go. So Noam Massey shows up at the Circle of Change Leadership Experience and he speaks and he's incredible and he's awesome. And he's so impacted by the program that from that point on, he wants to meet with us. So like every quarter, because he has a busy schedule, he says, I make time for you guys. I want you guys to know a lot of people want to meet with me, but I'm making time for you all because I believe in you and I believe in what you're doing. And so we're sitting there at the table. And again, so we've already networked, we've already met, we're connecting. Now we're developing and building the relationship. We're talking to him. And one of my good friends, Mark, he's like, we need to ask for some money. We need some sponsorship. And so he says, can you give us sponsorship? And he was like, let me look into it. Do you know, within about 3 months, he says, yes, we got sponsorship. We're going to give you guys $12,000 for your business. $12K. To this day, it's the most we've ever got from any organization. $12K. So we got a $12,000 sponsorship. And then the next year, we got a $5,000 sponsorship because we continued to build the relationship. Then he ended up leaving, so that's why we didn't have the relationship anymore. He went to Atlanta, Georgia. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the Circle of Change Leadership Conference not only had an incredible speaker, but his $17,000 contribution is one of the key reasons why we are still thriving, we are still succeeding, and we are making an impact today. I want you to understand that Circle of Change, this vision to impact the world, to change students' lives, is not just because of my vision or it's because of relationships and incredible people that I've met, that I've networked with, that I've connected with, that I've developed relationships with, and that I continue to manage. Liz, another supporter, she's brought your students over and over again. Why? Relationships. So I encourage you all, if you're going to be an emotionally intelligent leader, not only do you got to know your triggers, not only do you got to regulate those triggers, not only do you got to have social awareness, but you have to be able to manage relationships. How do I do that, Dr. J? Real simple. Number one, network. Connect. You don't have to be in person. Go on LinkedIn and start connecting. Number two, develop and build relationships. And lastly, maintain the relationship through a positive reputation, through effective communication and positive behavior. This is the last component of what I call emotionally intelligent leadership.